Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Mandy and this is the very first time you are seeing me on camera and speaking to the camera versus on camera and hiking somewhere in the forest. So this is something I've been wanting to do for quite a while and I'm finally taking that plunge, trying to come out of my comfort zone, being in front of the camera while speaking, and just introduce myself a little bit. I've been a photographer now for about 20 years. My dad was the first one to show me how to use a camera, and it was his old Canon TLB, fully manual. He showed me how to set it up, and I remember taking my very first photo in Boston of him. I'm very proud of that photo. It tells a story basically, and also shows a lot about my dad, on who he was, and he's just a big part of who I am today. So my channel is mainly, as you'll see, mainly about films in nature, hiking. I like to do a lot of national parks and national forests. That is my main mission. I won't strictly, limit it to those things. As you'll see on my channel, I do a lot of different things. But my passion project called Experience Our Parks is mainly about national parks, anything basically under the national park umbrella, plus national forests. National forests tend to have fewer restrictions on what you can do. I don't do drone work yet, but I am thinking about getting into it. But a lot of national forests do allow that, where of course national parks, you have to get a permit or they just don't allow it at all, depending on where you are. So yeah. So I tend to, of course, work by myself. I'm very minimalistic. I like my tripod, I like my camera, and a backpack, maybe a couple different lenses, and that's about it. I really strive to simplify a lot of my work, and I did end up buying a gimbal a couple years ago, and I just don't use it. I just found it to be quite heavy to lug around and more of a nuisance than anything else, trying to set it up, get it calibrated, and everything. So, I don't really use it as much as I had hoped when I purchased it, but it is what it is. So I did end up just making a new camera purchase. It is the Lumix S5 II, and that's actually what I'm filming on right now. I love it, and with the internal stabilization, it really kind of eliminates the need for me to use a gimbal. So I started filmmaking in 2020. It was obviously a time where a lot of people learned different things because we finally had time to do it. Filmmaking is something I've always really wanted to get into. I just didn't because it was quite intimidating. I just never really made that leap. So I finally did. I just started filming in our yard, and 3 years later, and I'm now filming probably about once a week. That's really my goal. Sometimes, obviously, that doesn't always happen. But on average, I'd say once a week, I try to film. Filmmaking for me was very intimidating, and it took me a long time to get into it, and like I said, 2020 really allowed me to take that time and learn it, and learn the process of not just filming, but also in post. Probably the most intimidating part is the editing for me. It's quite the process. So I'm also a traveler, above all, I would say, because I've been traveling pretty much my entire life. My parents started to be pretty young with traveling, being on an airplane, just getting used to traveling and being around other people and kind of being in that whole world. And I'm very, very grateful for them for doing that, because I don't think I would be where I am right now if it weren't for that. My best friend Alex and I did a very big road trip in 2009. We were both 21. We were looking for adventure. We were kind of looking to break away from the norm, and we took a pretty ambitious trip. We did basically around the United States, 10,000 miles in about 5 weeks. And honestly, to this day, it is still one of my absolute favorite trips. Not just being with my best friend, but the fact that, we went to places where I've never been before. That was the first time that I was on the West Coast. First time that I really visited a lot of national parks. We bought a Parks Pass first and just really made use of that Parks Pass. Yeah, I think to this day that is one of my absolute favorite trips, and I will never ever forget it. After our 2009 road trip, part of what we didn't include in our road trip around the States, we basically did a circle. For some reason, we didn't even touch New England. So I really wanted to experience New England. I had been there a couple times in the past, and I just knew I really wanted to explore it a little bit more. I made my first solo road trip up to Maine. It was it was such a great time. There were a couple times where somebody would ask me, you know, like, oh, like, are you traveling by yourself? And, you know, you always have to be careful with who you're talking to about that. One person in particular was a waitress at a restaurant that I actually went to for breakfast a couple times. And by the third morning, I think it was, she had asked me, you know, if I was by myself or she just basically asked what I was up to. And so I told her, and I always looked a little younger than I was, so I think she thought that I was much younger than I was. And at the time I was 22. So I told her I was on a solo road trip, and at this point, this was in Rhode Island. I was pretty early on in my trip because that was one of the first places that I had stopped. And so I told her I was on a road trip by myself, and she asked me if I was afraid, and I said no. And that's something that I think I'll always remember as well, because it's something that you get pretty often. So I've been asked that quite a few times now, and every time that I'm asked that, it makes me think about all the people that want to travel solo and don't because of fear. And I really, really want to kind of diminish that fear and kind of share my experiences a little bit and open up maybe a world to somebody who isn't taking that first step to do what they want. I do think that everybody should travel solo at least once in their life, maybe even if you're not really into that. I do think that it's an experience that really opens up not just yourself, like with growth, but maybe you'll travel solo and you'll realize that you never ever want to travel with anybody else ever again. No, I'm just kidding. There are a few select people that I can travel with, and my husband being one of them, of course. He really likes traveling, but not near as much as me, and I totally get that. You know, travel for me is almost like I have to do it. It basically drives me, and it is very inspiring for me as well. And not just traveling itself, like seeing other people travel and everything, it makes me excited for them. It makes me excited to travel, maybe to a place that they're traveling to and I've never been, and it just makes me want to go and experience it for myself. And when I travel and do photography as well, I really try to bring the viewer into where I am or what I experienced at that moment. I like my photos to be as real life as possible, how I saw it at least, and everybody sees things differently. So of course, editing is very subjective. So I also wanted to go into a little bit about what I do when I'm not photographing or filming. So my husband and I run a company called Snap Outfitters. We make custom truck campers for basically any truck from 5 foot up to 8 foot bed. So and I'll also link that below so you can kind of get a feel for what we do and who we are. So we work in a shop out of southern Pennsylvania, and we are about 45 minutes to an hour northwest of Baltimore City. I know at one point we were the only ones on the East Coast. I don't know if that's still true, but as far as I'm aware, we are. So we acquired the business in March of 2021. My husband was actually working for them as a contractor in 2020, and he was welding and fabricating for them. The camper is called the Treehouse, and like I said, we make it for virtually any truck from 5 foot up to 8 foot beds, and it's basically a wedge, so you pop up the lid, it has a loft, you can have full use of your truck bed, which is really, really awesome and I think important. Feel free to check us out. I will link that below, and we hope to see some new faces. So I will also link our YouTube channel below for our company, Snap Outfitters. I tend to do a lot of install videos and then promo videos, like if I'm out and about. We also have a friend who does some video work as well. We are hoping to get into vlogging and kind of show people our business, what we do, maybe the process of building a camper. That's about it for today. I really just wanted to introduce myself. I really, really appreciate you all being here, subscribing to my channel, liking my videos, commenting on my videos. It really means a lot. So I'd love to connect with some of you guys and maybe get to know everybody a little bit better, so please comment below. Are you a filmmaker yourself? Are you a photographer? Are you a traveler? Are you none of those things? Please let me know who you are, and please say hello. And I hope to talk to you guys soon.